The letters on the bottle danced before my eyes like restless black ants, and before I could focus my sight, my daughter's scream pierced my chest harder than any physical pain. I am Margaret. I am 72 years old, and even though my vision gets blurry, my mind remains as clear as spring water. She thinks I am just an old piece of junk in the corner, but she forgot who paid for every single brick of this roof. It all started in the kitchen, that place that for 40 years was my kingdom and now felt like enemy territory. The afternoon light came through the window, that same window I religiously cleaned every Saturday, illuminating the dust floating in the air. I held the bottle of my blood pressure pills in my hand. The doctor had changed my dose that morning. He explained it patiently, but my mind, sometimes treacherous because of nerves, had forgotten if it was 1 or 2 tablets. My glasses, already old and scratched, did not help much. I felt that pang of vulnerability that hits us older folks when the body does not respond at the speed of the mind. Claire, my only daughter, was sitting at the table. She had her phone glued to her nose, swiping her finger across the screen with a speed that made me dizzy. It had been 3 years since she moved back home. Temporarily, she said after her second divorce. That temporarily had stretched out like chewing gum in the sun. I welcomed her with open arms, of course. What mother would not? I got her room ready, took my sewing supplies out of the closet so she would have space, and went back to cooking for 2, stretching my pension and the savings left from selling my grocery store. "Honey," I said softly, trying not to interrupt too much, "could you help me for a quick second? I cannot read if this says 10 or 20 milligrams." She did not look up. She sighed. It was one of those long sighs, loaded with theatrical annoyance, as if I had asked her to carry a bag of cement on her back. "Claire, please," I insisted, feeling my hand tremble a little. I do not like asking for help. I was a woman who carried boxes of fruit at the farmer's market at 4 in the morning. I was the woman who kept a business afloat when my husband, God rest his soul, fell ill. Asking for help to read a label made me feel small. That was when she exploded. Claire slammed her phone onto the table with a sharp thud that made the sugar bowl rattle. She turned to me with her eyes bloodshot with a fury that did not fit the moment. "Oh, for God's sake, Mom!" she yelled, her voice bouncing off the tiles. "What kind of hell is this? You cannot do anything by yourself. Everything is Claire this, Claire that." I froze. The medicine bottle was still in my hand, gripped tightly. I felt the blood rush to my face, not out of shame, but from a painful mix of surprise and humiliation. "It is just reading a label, honey," I whispered, my voice hanging by a thread. "It is not just reading a label." She got up from the chair, throwing her hands in the air. "It is everything. You are slow. You forget things. You are in the way in the kitchen. You are dead weight in this house, Mom. Dead weight." The words hung in the air, heavy and toxic. Dead weight. She looked at me with disdain, as if I were a moth-eaten piece of furniture someone forgot to throw in the trash. Then she scoffed, snatched the bottle from my hand roughly, read the label, and tossed it back, almost throwing it at my chest. "1. It is 1 pill. Take your damn pill and leave me alone," she said, returning to her phone. I stood there feeling my heart crumple inside my chest like an old piece of paper. I did not say anything. My lips sealed into a straight line. I clutched the bottle to my chest, turned around, and walked toward my bedroom. My steps were slow, my slippers dragging a bit. Not because of my age, but because of the immense weight of ingratitude that had just dropped onto my shoulders. I closed my bedroom door, my sanctuary. It smelled like lavender and my arnica creams in here. I sat on the edge of the bed, that king-sized bed that now felt huge, and left the bottle on the nightstand. My hands were shaking, uncontrollably now, dead weight. The phrase repeated in my head like a broken record. I looked at my hands. They were full of age spots and bulging veins, the skin as thin as onion paper. But these hands had worked more than Claire could imagine in 10 lifetimes. These hands kneaded bread to sell when times were tough, washed other people's clothes to pay for her college classes, counted coins until dawn so there would never be a lack of a hot meal on the table. I stood up and walked over to the closet mirror. I saw an old woman with white hair and sad eyes, but behind that fog in my eyes, I saw the usual Margaret. The Margaret who negotiated with the market suppliers, the one who never let the debt collectors fool her, the one who kept this house standing through earthquakes and economic crises. Dead weight? I asked my reflection quietly. In my own house? The injustice burned in my stomach. It was not just the insult, it was her blindness. Claire lived here without paying a single cent for rent. The electricity, the water, the gas, the food, it all came out of my pocket. She claimed she was saving for an apartment, but I saw packages of new clothes arriving every week. I saw her ordering expensive food delivery. I saw her going out with her friends. I never asked her for anything. I thought it was my duty to support her while she got back on her feet, but apparently my generosity had become her right and my presence her nuisance. I sat down in front of my old sewing machine, a black Singer pedal machine that had been my faithful companion for decades. I used it as a desk now. I ran my hand over the worn wood. There, in the bottom drawer, the one with a little gold key I kept in my apron pocket, lay my truth. I opened the drawer with a soft click. The smell of old paper and metal rose to my nose. There were no threads or needles in there. There were folders. I pulled out the blue folder. First, the house deed, fully paid off 15 years ago. My name, Margaret Johnson, was written in large, clear letters. Not Claire's name. Mine. Underneath, the bank savings books. Selling the store did not make me a millionaire, but it left me a very comfortable cushion that I had managed to invest in fixed-term deposits. The interest from that, added to my widow's pension, kept this home running like a clock. Claire thought money magically appeared. Or maybe she thought her small, sporadic contribution for groceries, which she rarely made, held the world together. She saw an old woman who needed help reading, but she did not see the manager who made sure she had hot water every morning for her 30-minute showers. I reviewed the numbers. I was not rich, but I was free. I could move into a nice retirement home, one of those with gardens where they would cook for me and do my laundry. I could travel to visit my cousin on the coast. I could do so many things, but I stayed here for her, so she would not be alone. And she called me dead weight. A single tear rolled down my cheek. I wiped it away with anger. No, I had already cried enough in my life over men who were not worth it and over difficult situations. I was not going to cry over the cruelty of a daughter who did not know how to appreciate what she had. Evening fell, and the house went dark. I heard Claire in the living room laughing while talking on the phone, probably with some friend complaining about the old lady. The smell of burnt toast reached my room. She was surely making herself dinner. She did not call me. Before, I would have run out to prepare something delicious for her, worried that she ate well. Not today. I stayed in my room, eating some saltine crackers I had on my dresser and drinking a glass of water. The loneliness felt different that night. It was not a sad loneliness. It was a lucid loneliness. I realized I had been buying my daughter's affection with my servitude. By making myself small so she would feel big, I had only succeeded in letting her trample all over me. I remembered my mother's words. Margaret, whoever turns themselves into a doormat, cannot complain if they get stepped on. How right the old woman was. I had become the doormat of this house. I had become invisible, except when I was a bother. I went to bed early, but I did not sleep. I stared at the ceiling in the dark, listening to the noises of the house. I heard Claire go to the bathroom. I heard the television on until late. I thought about the next day. I knew what was coming. The pattern was always the same. She would explode, insult me. Then a few hours would pass, her anger would fade, and she would act as if nothing had happened. And the worst part, whenever there was an explosion like that, a request would follow shortly after. It was her twisted way of making peace, asking me for something to prove to herself that I was still useful, that I was still under her control, but something had broken inside me with those two words, dead weight. It was no longer the same Margaret lying in that bed. The submissive Margaret had stayed in the kitchen, vanishing with her daughter's scream. The woman staring into the darkness now felt a new coldness in her chest, an armor she did not know she had. Morning broke with that typical gray of our city. I woke up with my usual aching bones, but with a mind sharp as a razor blade. I did my routine in silence. I washed my face, combed my white hair into a perfect bun, and put on my house dress, the one with blue flowers. But this time, I also put on my pearl earrings, the ones I only wore to church. A small detail to remind myself who I was. I walked out to the kitchen. Claire was already there, pacing around with that urgent look she got when she needed something. The coffee maker was off. I had not made coffee. She looked at me in surprise. "No coffee?" she asked, in a tone that tried to be casual, completely ignoring yesterday's yelling. I did not answer. I walked to the pantry, took out my mug, poured myself a glass of cold milk, and sat at the table with astonishing calmness. I started drinking my milk, looking out at the garden, ignoring her presence. Claire cleared her throat. She looked nervous. She paced back and forth. I knew the attack was coming. I knew my daughter better than the back of my hand. She was in trouble or wanted to buy something. It was always money. "Mom," she started, using that sweet, cloying tone she used when she was a little girl and wanted ice cream. "Listen, about yesterday. I was just really stressed out, you know? Work, life. I should not have yelled at you like that." I kept looking at the garden. A sparrow was hopping among the geranium pots. What a pretty little bird, so free. "But anyway, it is in the past," she continued, assuming my forgiveness as a done deal. "Listen, Mommy, I wanted to ask you a huge favor. I know it is the end of the month, but this incredible opportunity came up. Some friends are going to the beach this weekend, and I need to disconnect. I really need it for my mental health." She paused, waiting for my usual reaction, the concern for her health, the immediate offer of help. I kept drinking my milk, sip by sip, with exasperating slowness. "The problem is that my child's support deposit has not come through and I have zero funds." She dropped the bomb. "I need you to lend me $300. I swear I will pay you back as soon as they deposit the money." "Yes, Mommy, it is just $300. You have your little savings tucked away that you do not even use." She stopped talking and stared at me, with her hand extended over the table, palm open, waiting for the cash. As always, she expected me to get up, go to my room, take the money from my hiding place, and give it to her with a smile and a "Take good care of yourself, honey." But the silence stretched on. It stretched like a rubber band about to snap. I left the empty mug on the saucer gently. I wiped the corner of my lips with the cloth napkin. Then I turned my head slowly toward her. I looked her in the eyes, those eyes that yesterday looked at me with disgust and today shined with greed. My face showed no emotion, no anger, no sadness, no love, just a blank wall. "Mom," she insisted, a little louder, thinking I had not heard her. "Did you hear me? I said if you can lend me $300. I stared at her, like someone looking at a stranger speaking a foreign language. In my mind, the words dead weight echoed loudly, giving me the power I needed. If I am dead weights do not hear, do not speak, and above all, do not lend money. I got up from the chair with a dignity that made me feel 10 feet tall. I walked past her without even brushing against her, as if she were a ghost in my kitchen. "Mom," she yelled, already losing her patience again. "I am talking to you. Do not play deaf." I walked toward the patio door. I was going to water my plants. My geraniums needed water and love, and they, unlike her, always bloomed when you cared for them. The farce had begun. If she wanted a useless person in the house, she would get the best performance of my life. She did not know that this supposed deafness was going to be the key that would open Pandora's box and change the rules of this game forever. Claire's door slam made the kitchen windows rattle, but I did not even blink. I kept watering my geraniums with the patience of someone who has seen many storms pass and knows that, in the end, the sun always comes out or everything floods, but the earth remains. From the garden, I could see her silhouette moving frantically inside the house, waving her arms in the air, grabbing her purse, and shooting out into the street as if the devil himself were chasing her. When her car engine roared and she drove off, a blessed silence descended upon my house. It was not the silence of loneliness that used to scare me so much. It was a clean, tactical silence, full of possibilities. I left the brass watering can on the patio table and dried my hands on my apron. "Very well, Margaret," I said to myself, feeling a strange electricity run down my spine. "If I am dead weight, let us see how much this dead body really weighs." I went inside the house. The air still smelled of the cheap, sweet perfume Claire overused, a fragrance meant to cover up her bitterness. I headed straight to the living room, that space she had colonized with her fashion magazines, her half-finished coffee mugs, and her phone chargers plugged into every outlet. For 3 years, I had walked on eggshells in my own living room so as not to disturb her space. How stupid! I sat in my old reading chair, the green velvet one my late husband bought when we opened the second branch of the store. From there, I had a panoramic view of the situation. I observed the pile of mail Claire threw on the entryway table every day, ignoring it completely. She always told me, "Oh, Mom, it is just junk mail, throw it away." I got up and took the pile. My hands, the ones she despised for being old and shaky, started sorting the envelopes with the skill of an expert cashier. They were not shaking now. Anger is an excellent stabilizer. I set the junk mail aside. Underneath appeared the envelopes with cellophane windows, bank statements, notices, and something that caught my attention, a letter from a payday loan company, the kind that charge interest rates that would make a loan shark blush. The envelope was in Claire's name, but the address was mine. I opened the envelope without remorse. Privacy is lost when you insult the person who feeds you. My eyes scanned the numbers. Claire owed almost $20,000. Personal loan for miscellaneous expenses, it read. I checked the date. It was from 6 months ago. What does a woman who does not pay rent, electricity, or food spend $20,000 on? I kept digging. I found the bill for the cable television and high-speed internet. The contract was in my name, but I only watched the news and the 6 o'clock soap opera. She had ordered the premium package with movie and sports channels for her current boyfriend, that guy Ryan who came over on Sundays to eat my roast and criticize how the meat was cooked. $200 a month. I paid that religiously with my automatic withdrawal without questioning it, because she said she needed it to look for a job. I went to my room and took out something from the closet that I had not touched in years, but never threw away. My old desktop calculator, that big gray one with keys that go clack, clack, clack and print the numbers on a paper roll. I also took out my ledger, a hardcover accounting notebook with a red spine. I sat at the dining room table, pushed aside the lace tablecloth, and set up my tools of war. I plugged in the calculator. The electrical hum instantly brought back memories of my store, Hope Grocery. I remembered the nights doing inventory, counting cans of tuna and bags of beans, calculating profit margins to be able to pay the soda vendor. I was not a helpless little old lady. I was the woman who figured out the milk delivery guy was stealing a gallon a week just by checking the decimals. I was the woman who negotiated with the bank so we would not lose the store during the 2008 financial crisis. "Let us see, my daughter," I muttered, smoothing out the first blank page of the notebook. "We are going to do an audit." I started adding up. First, the fixed household expenses she consumed: electricity, water, gas. She showered twice a day, 40 minutes each time. She left lights on in empty rooms. Second, the food. Claire did not eat just anything. "Mom, buy salmon, it is good for the skin." "Mom, do not buy that coffee brand anymore, it tastes like dirt." And I, like a fool, went and bought the expensive stuff to please her. Third, the small loans she never paid back. $50 for gas, $30 to top up her phone, $100 for a hair salon trip. My fingers flew over the keys. Clack, 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 clack. The sound was music to my ears, a rhythm of truth that erased the lies of her hurtful words. The paper tape began to grow and coil on the floor. At the end of the hour, I looked at the estimated total for the last 3 years. The figure punched me in the stomach harder than her yelling. Claire had cost me almost $80,000. $80,000. With that money, I could have remodeled the kitchen, I could have traveled to Europe like I always dreamed, or simply kept it in the bank giving me peace of mind. Instead, I had invested it in a woman who called me deadweight. I took off my glasses and rubbed the bridge of my nose. The feeling of stupidity was overwhelming. How did I allow this? At what point did a mother's love turn into voluntary blindness? I got up and went to the kitchen to make myself some chamomile tea. While the water boiled, I looked at the cupboards. They were full of products that I did not even like. Organic granola, almond milk, imported cookies, all bought with my money. I remembered when Claire was a little girl. If she got bad grades, I would take away her television. If she was rude, there was no dessert. Parenting was simple: action and reaction. But at some point, when she became an adult and her marriages failed, I started treating her like a victim. Poor little daughter, she has suffered so much, I thought. And by treating her like a victim, I turned her into an executioner. The kettle whistled. I poured my tea and went back to the table with the ledger. The victim had screamed at me that I was a burden. Well, burdens do not finance luxury lifestyles. I ran my hand over the sheet of paper where I had written down the numbers. The fresh ink shined. I felt powerful, not because I had money, but because I had information. Claire lived in a fantasy bubble where money sprouted from the walls, and I had the needle to pop it. But I could not do it by yelling. Yelling is for the weak, for those who have no arguments. I had something better. I had control of the infrastructure. I remembered Mr. Johnson, a customer at the store who always asked for credit and never paid. One day, he came in demanding I give him the good deli meat. I did not yell at him. I simply smiled and said, "I am sorry, Mr. Johnson. The meat slicer is broken." He walked away grumbling, but I did not lose a single ounce of ham. That was the strategy. The meat slicer was broken. The house phone rang, pulling me out of my memories. I let it ring 3 times. On the 4th ring, I answered, but said nothing. "Hello? Mom?" It was Claire's voice. She sounded out of breath, with music in the background. "Listen, I forgot to tell you. I am going to be late. I went to get lunch with the girls to vent. Do not wait up for me. Oh, and hey, did you think about the money? I really need it for the weekend." I stayed silent, breathing softly. "Mom, are you there?" Ugh, what a pain with this lady. I heard her say to someone else, moving the phone away, but not enough. She must have left the phone off the hook. She is already going senile, I swear. It is like talking to a brick wall. Yes, a brick wall, I whispered to myself, and hung up the phone gently. Senile. Another label. Perfect. If I am senile, I can forget things. I can forget to pay the internet bill. I can forget to go to the grocery store. I can forget where I put the supplemental credit card she uses. I went upstairs to my bedroom and looked for my wallet. I took out the debit card where my pension and interest were deposited. Tomorrow I would go to the bank. No, even better. I could start right now from home. My nephew, my sister Lucy's son, had taught me how to use online banking on my tablet a year ago. "Just in case, Auntie," he told me. I never used it because I was afraid of clicking the wrong thing. But today, the fear was gone. I looked for the tablet in the nightstand drawer, wiped off the dust, and turned it on. The screen light illuminated my face in the dim room. I carefully entered my password. MARGARETONENINEFIVETWOTHREE. There were my accounts, and there were the recent transactions. The Sky Restaurant, $120 yesterday. Zara Clothing Store, $250 3 days ago. Uber, $35. Every charge was a slap in the face, but it no longer hurt. Now it was simply evidence. I looked for the additional cards option. There it was. Claire Johnson. Status, active, limit. $1,000 a month. My finger hovered over the virtual button that said block card. I hesitated for a second of maternal instinct, that old habit of protecting the young. What would happen if she had a real emergency? Then I remembered her face, her eyes full of contempt, her twisted mouth screaming at me dead weight. I remembered she wanted the money to go to the beach, not for medicine, not for food, for the beach. While I was counting my blood pressure pills, I pressed the button. The card has been successfully blocked. I felt a physical relief, as if I had taken off a tight corset, but that was just the beginning. I went to the direct debit section, internet and premium cable, cancel direct debit, Claire's cell phone, unlimited plan, cancel direct debit. I felt like a general in her command tent, cutting off the enemy's supply lines. If she wanted war, she would get a siege, a silent, invisible, and relentless siege. I closed the tablet and hid it under my mattress. Nobody would look there. I went down to the kitchen. I was hungry, but I was not going to cook for two. I made myself a cheese sandwich and sat down to eat it with pleasure. It tasted like glory. It tasted like freedom. As I chewed, I thought about the pantry. It was full. If I stopped shopping today, there would be food for 2 weeks. But that food was hers. I had my simple tastes. I went to the large pantry cabinet. I started taking out the boxes of her expensive cereals, the cans of imported pâté, the bags of Italian pasta. I found an empty cardboard box in the laundry room and put everything in there. I carried the box, heavy as it was, up to my bedroom. I shoved it in the back of my closet and locked it. The kitchen pantry was left looking sad, with just a bag of rice, some beans, salt, and oil. The basics, what an old dead weight might need to survive. If Claire wanted to eat salmon, she would have to catch it herself. Night fell. The house was in a sepulchral calm. I sat in the living room again, without turning on the television, just listening to the wall clock. Tick-tock, tick-tock. At 11 at night, I heard the key in the lock. Claire came in, humming a song, smelling of wine and cigarettes. "Mom?" she called from the entryway. "Wow, it is so dark. Are you asleep already?" I did not answer. I was sitting in the armchair, in the shadows, invisible to her as always. But this time, I was watching. She turned on the living room light and jumped when she saw me. "Oh, you scared me." She put her hand to her chest. "What are you doing sitting there in the dark like a mummy?" I looked at her. My eyes adjusted to the light. She was carrying shopping bags, new clothes, probably bought with the card before I blocked it. "Resting," I said, with a raspy voice feigning weakness. "Well, go to your bed. Hey, I tried to pay for the Uber with the card you gave me, and it declined. I had to pay in cash with the last bit I had on me. Tomorrow, check that, okay? You probably forgot to deposit the money or something. It was so embarrassing." She kicked off her high heels and left them lying in the middle of the living room floor. "Oh, and I am starving. What is for dinner?" she asked, walking toward the kitchen without waiting for an answer. I stood up slowly, leaning on the arms of the chair with an Oscar-worthy performance. "I do not know, honey," I mumbled, slurring my words. I felt really sick today, very tired. My vision was failing me all day. I could not go to the grocery store. I could not cook. She stopped in the kitchen doorway. I heard her open the pantry. Silence. Then the sound of doors opening and slamming shut violently. The refrigerator. The freezer. "Mom?" Her voice came out high-pitched in disbelief. "There is nothing. There is literally nothing. What am I supposed to eat for dinner?" I walked down the hallway, heading straight for my room. "I am sorry, honey," I said without turning around. "I am a dead weight, remember? And dead weights do not do the grocery shopping." "But I am hungry," she whined, like a 5-year-old child. I stopped in front of my door. "There is rice," I said softly, "and tap water. Enjoy." I went into my room and locked the door. I heard her furious footsteps approach and pound on the wood. "Mom, open up! Do not be ridiculous! I have to eat a decent dinner! Mom!" I took off my slippers and got into bed, pulling my patchwork quilt up to my chin. The pounding continued for a while longer, accompanied by insults that no longer hurt me, but rather confirmed that my diagnosis was correct. The patient was in critical condition and the shock therapy had just begun. I took my rosary out from under my pillow, but tonight I did not pray for patience. I prayed for strength. Because tomorrow, when she tried to use the internet to work or watch her shows and realized the signal was dead, the real storm would unleash, and I planned on enjoying every single clap of thunder. I closed my eyes with a smile drawn on my lips, imagining her face when she discovered that the bank, just like her mother, had decided to stop listening to her. The morning sun came through the kitchen window with marvelous insolence, illuminating the dust particles that danced in the air like tiny golden ballerinas. It was 7 in the morning, and the house was submerged in that particular silence that precedes a storm. I had gotten up an hour earlier, moving with the lightness of an alley cat to prepare my coffee in the small stovetop espresso maker I kept in the back of the cupboard, the one Claire despised because she said it burned the beans. The strong, robust aroma filled my lungs, giving me the energy my old bones demanded. I sat in my usual chair, facing the garden, with my steaming mug and a piece of buttered toast I had sneaked from my secret stash in the bedroom. I did not set the table for 2, I did not take out the orange juice, nor did I cut up fruit, nor did I leave Claire's vitamins next to her glass of water, like I had done religiously every morning for the last 3 years. Today the table was bare, cold, occupied only by my solitary and determined presence. I heard Claire's alarm clock go off upstairs. Once, twice. On the 3rd time, the sharp thud of her hand against the nightstand. Then, silence again, followed by the dull sound of her dragging footsteps heading to the bathroom. I smiled to myself, a small, private smile that did not reach my eyes. The machinery of my plan was already in motion, gear by gear turning silently. When Claire came downstairs 20 minutes later, she wore that grumpy face she usually reserved for Mondays. She was wearing her pink silk robe, poorly tied, and her hair was a mess. She walked into the kitchen expecting the smell of a full breakfast, but was met with nothingness. She stopped dead in her tracks, staring at the unlit stove and the empty table. "Mom?" Her voice sounded raspy. "There is no coffee. My head is killing me." I looked up from my mug with exasperating slowness, adjusting the glasses hanging from a little chain on my chest. I looked at her with that blank expression I had practiced in front of the mirror the night before. "Good morning, honey," I said in a soft, almost tremulous voice. "No, actually, there is not any. The coffee ran out yesterday, do you not remember? And since I could not go to the store because I felt so sick—" Claire scoffed, rolling her eyes. She pulled the pantry door open roughly, looking for some tea bag or instant coffee, but only found the empty jars I had strategically left at the front. "This is unbelievable," she muttered, slamming the door shut. "There is never anything in this house. Fine, I will just order a Starbucks coffee and a sandwich. I have a Zoom meeting in half an hour and I need to wake up." She pulled her phone out of her robe pocket and started typing furiously. I went back to looking at my geraniums, counting the seconds in my head. 1, 2, 3. "What is going on now?" she yelled, staring at her phone screen in disbelief. "Why?" I shrugged without looking at her. "Why what, sweetie?" "The internet, Mom, the internet." She walked over to the router in the corner of the living room, crouching down to check the lights. "It is red. The internet light is red. Did you unplug something when you were cleaning?" "I have not cleaned anything, honey. You know I am a dead weight, and dead weights do not clean," I replied with lethal innocence, taking a sip of my coffee. She did not catch the irony. She was too busy resetting the device, pressing buttons, cursing under her breath. The service must be down in the area. Damn it. I will have to use my cell data for the meeting. She marched back to the kitchen, sat across from me, and tried again to place her breakfast order on the food delivery app. I waited. I knew what was coming, the block I put on the card yesterday afternoon. "What the hell?" she exclaimed, slamming her fist on the table. "Declined," it says, "unauthorized transaction. But it has funds. It is the card you gave me." She glared at me with narrowed eyes, accusingly. "Mom, did you do something with the bank?" I set my mug down on the saucer with a soft clink. I looked her in the eyes, maintaining my mask of a confused old lady. "With the bank? Oh, honey, I barely know how to use the ATM. Could it be expired?" Or maybe I paused theatrically, putting a hand to my forehead as if trying to remember something difficult. "Maybe I forgot to deposit my pension this month. You know how my head has been lately. I keep forgetting important things." Claire ran her hands through her hair, desperate. "Mom, it is a supplementary credit card. You do not need to deposit the pension. It charges from your main account. Oh my God, give me patience." She sprang up from her chair, pacing back and forth like a caged lion. "I have an important meeting. I have no coffee, I have no internet, and my card is declining. You are a disaster, Mom. A complete disaster." "I am so sorry, honey," I said, lowering my head to hide the gleam of satisfaction in my eyes. "It is old age. I am useless now, just like you say. I am a burden." "Well, yeah, right now you actually are," she yelled without weighing her words. "I need cash. Give me $50 to go buy something at the convenience store and put some data on my phone." I shook my head sadly. "I do not have any cash on me, Claire. I did not go out yesterday, remember? And the safe box... Oh, I lost the little key. I do not know where I put it. I looked all night and nothing." Claire let out a scream of pure frustration, a guttural sound that bounced off the walls of my clean kitchen. "This is just not possible. You are sabotaging me. It seems like you are doing this on purpose." She stormed out of the kitchen in a fury, ran up the stairs, and a few minutes later came back down fully dressed, slamming the front door on her way out. She was probably going to a friend's house to freeload some internet and breakfast. I was left alone again. Peace returned to the house, but now it had a different flavor. It was the flavor of the first battle won. I got up, washed my mug and plate, and put them away. Then I headed to the laundry room. There lay Claire's mountain of dirty clothes, silk blouses, linen pants, delicate underwear. Normally, I separated everything by colors and fabrics, hand-washed the delicates, and starched and ironed her shirts. Not today. I grabbed all her clothes and mixed them together without a second thought. Darks with lights, fine fabrics with denim, and shoved them all into the washing machine. I tossed in some cheap detergent, the bulk kind they sell at the market, and selected the heavy-duty cycle with hot water. As the machine started filling with water, I felt a twinge of guilt. My mother had taught me to treat clothes like a treasure. "Your clothes speak for who you are," she used to say. But then I remembered yesterday's scream. Dead weight. The guilt evaporated like water on a hot skillet. If she wanted spotless clothes, she would have to learn how to use the washing machine or pay for the dry cleaners. I was already retired from being her maid. I went out to the yard to tend to my plants. I spent the morning pruning, watering, and talking to my geraniums. Around noon, the landline rang. I let it ring. I knew it was her, probably calling to demand I look for the safe key or yell at me to call the internet company. I did not answer. At 2 in the afternoon, she came back. She walked into the house, sweating, her makeup running. It was blazing hot outside. "Mom!" she yelled from the entryway. "The house phone is not working either. I have been calling you for hours." "I was in the yard, honey. I did not hear it. You know I am a little deaf," I said, appearing from the patio with my pruning shears in hand. She looked at me with suspicion. Her eyes scanned my upright posture, my clean clothes, my calm demeanor. Something did not add up for her. The useless little old lady from yesterday did not match the tranquil woman standing in front of her, but her selfishness was so big it did not let her see the reality, that she was the useless one. "I need to eat," she said, dropping onto the couch. "I'm starving to death. I went to Sarah's house, but her internet was acting up too, and I could not work right. What did you make for lunch?" I stared right at her. "Nothing." "What do you mean, nothing?" She sat up, indignant. It is 2 in the afternoon, Mom. You always have lunch ready by this time. Well, since you did not leave me any money and I do not have cash, the pantry is empty, I explained with crushing logic. I ate some leftover rice from yesterday. There is a little bit left in the pot if you want. Claire stood up, red with anger. She went to the kitchen. She took the lid off the pot and saw the handful of white, dry, sad rice at the bottom. "This is a joke," she screamed. "I am actually hungry. I want meat. I want a salad." "Then go to the grocery store, honey." "Oh, right. The card is not working. What a shame." And it was in that moment, right then and there, when I saw the shift in her eyes. For the first time, her annoyance gave way to suspicion. She looked at me from the kitchen doorway, analyzing me. I gripped the pruning shears firmly, without trembling. My posture was straight. There was no apology on my face. "Mom?" she said slowly, lowering her voice. "What is going on? The internet is cut off. The card is declined. There is no food. There is no money. Are you punishing me? Is this about what I told you yesterday?" I smiled. It was a sad smile, the kind that hurts more than a slap in the face. "Punish you? Oh, Claire, how could you think that?" I walked toward her, stopping a few feet away. "I am just accepting my reality. You opened my eyes, honey. You told me I am a burden, that I do nothing, that I am in the way, and you are right. At my age, I should not be managing money or bills or cooking for young and strong people like you." She opened her mouth to argue, but I kept going, cutting off her air. So I decided to stop getting in the way. I stopped meddling in household affairs. If the internet got cut off, it must be because the dead weight forgot to pay for it. If there is no food, it is because the useless old lady did not know how to go to the store. I am just being what you see in me. The silence that followed was dense, heavy like a lead blanket. Claire looked at me, and I could see the gears in her brain working in overdrive, trying to process that her comfort depended entirely on my competence, that very competence she had insulted. But fix it," she stammered, losing her arrogance for a second. "Call the bank, pay the internet. I cannot live like this." "I do not know if I can, honey," I said, turning around to head back to the yard. "I feel very tired. I think I'm going to take a nap. Oh, your laundry is done washing. It is in the washer. You will have to hang it up yourself. My arms just cannot take that much anymore." I left her there, standing in the middle of the empty kitchen, her stomach growling and reality hitting her right in the face. I went into my room and locked the door again. I sat on my bed, my heart beating a little faster than normal, not out of fear, but from the adrenaline of the confrontation. I heard a muffled gasp coming from the laundry room a few minutes later. "No, my silk blouse! Mom, you shrunk it!" I closed my eyes and sighed. The war had officially been declared. She thought this was incompetence. She still did not understand it was a sit-down strike. I pulled my tablet out from under the mattress. I had a notification from the bank. Charge attempt, Netflix, $20. Declined. Charge attempt, Uber Eats, $45. Declined. I smiled. The financial wall was holding up, but I knew Claire would not give up that easily. She was stubborn, just like her father. Tomorrow she would try another tactic. Maybe she would try to manipulate me with tears, or maybe she would try to take control by force, looking for my documents or my hidden cash. I got up and went over to the old wooden trunk at the foot of the bed. That was where I kept the things that really mattered. The old photos, my grandmother's jewelry, and now my ledger and the house documents. I put a new padlock on it that I had bought months ago and never used. A thick-tempered steel padlock. I tucked the key inside my bra, close to my heart. Afternoon fell and the house plunged into darkness. Claire did not leave her room all afternoon. She was probably furious, crying over her ruined blouse and her empty stomach. I made myself some tea in my room with an electric water heater I kept for emergencies. I ate some saltine crackers and felt satisfied. Around 8 at night, I heard her coming down the stairs. She approached my door. "Mom," she said. Her voice sounded different, cold, calculating. "I know you are in there. I know you have money stashed away. Tomorrow Ryan is coming over and I want a decent dinner. If you cannot cook, give me cash to order something good. You are not going to embarrass me in front of him." I did not answer. "Did you hear me?" She banged on the door once, hard. "Stop playing the victim. I know you have the cash from the rent of the old commercial space. Tomorrow I want $300 on the table when I wake up, or we are going to have very serious problems." I heard her footsteps walk away. So that was her play. Threats. She thought she could intimidate me. Poor fool. She did not know she was threatening the woman who used to shove drunks out of her store with a broom. Ryan, the parasite boyfriend, perfect. If he was coming tomorrow, the stage would be even better. It would be public. I lay down in bed, watching the shadows the moon cast on the ceiling. My daughter thought this was about money or food. She did not understand it was about dignity. And dignity, when you get it back at 72 years old, is a more dangerous weapon than a loaded shotgun. Tomorrow, when Ryan arrived expecting his banquet and found a dark house and an empty pantry, Claire would learn the true magnitude of her mistake. And I would be right there, in my green armchair, quietly knitting, watching her house of cards collapse, card by card. The dead weight was about to become the heaviest stone in her shoe. The doorbell rang at 8 o'clock sharp, as punctual as death and debt collectors. I was sitting in my green armchair, knitting a scarf that was not for anyone in particular, just to keep my hands busy and my heart calm. The house was dimly lit, illuminated only by the floor lamp next to my seat. There was no smell of roast beef or baked potatoes, or that chocolate cake I used to bake on Fridays to satisfy the whims of my daughter and her boyfriend. The air smelled of floor wax and the electric tension that comes right before a storm. Claire ran down the stairs. She had put on a red dress that looked very good on her. Too bad she had bought it with my money just last week. She stopped when she saw me there, so calm, so useless. "Mom, please," she whispered desperately, wringing her hands. "Ryan is coming over tired. Do not start with your crazy old lady stuff. Behave yourself. If there is no dinner, at least do not embarrass us." I did not look up from my knitting needles. "I always behave, honey. I am a lady." She opened the door. Ryan walked in, a guy in his 40s with the smile of a used car salesman and a growing belly that gave away too many beers and not enough walks. He brought a cheap bottle of wine in his hand and that arrogance of someone who feels like he owns the ground he walks on without having spent a single dime to buy it. "Good evening, my favorite women," he bellowed, walking in like he owned the place. "Man, it is hot in here. Is the AC broken or what? Margaret, how are you? Is that roast ready yet? I am starving like a wolf." He dropped onto the large couch, putting his feet, shoes and all, up on the coffee table. That mahogany table I polished with almond oil. The gesture hurt me, but I did not say anything. I kept knitting. Knit one, purl one. Claire closed the door and stood in the middle of the living room, pale. "Baby," she started, her voice trembling. "There was a problem with the kitchen today. Mom is not feeling well." Ryan let out a dry laugh and looked at me patronizingly. "Oh, Margaret, always with your aches and pains. But hey, no big deal. We will just order some pizzas and call it a night. Hand me the TV remote, Claire. The game is about to start." Claire looked at the remote on the table. Then she looked at me, and then at the silent black screen on the wall. The cable is not working, Ryan." The man sat up straight, frowning. "What do you mean it is not working? It is satellite. What about the internet? I wanted to check some emails." "That neither," Claire murmured, so quietly she could barely be heard. "The system went down." Ryan scoffed, visibly annoyed. He loosened his tie roughly. "What a trash service. Well, just order the food. I am hungry, Claire. And bring me a cold beer while we wait." Claire stood frozen. I knew what was going through her mind. The blocked card, the lack of cash, the embarrassment. She looked at me with pleading eyes, those eyes that used to melt me and make me pull out my wallet without thinking. Now I only saw a grown woman who did not know how to solve her own problems. "Ryan," she said, swallowing hard, could you order dinner? It is just, I left my wallet upstairs and my phone is dead." Ryan looked at her in disbelief. "Me? But you guys always treat. Besides, I am short on cash until payday." He turned to me with that fake friendliness con artists use. "Margaret, I'm sure you have a little something stashed away right there, right? A few bills to buy dinner for your daughter's future husband. Come on, do not be stingy." I set my knitting needles on my lap. The silence grew thick. I slowly took off my glasses and wiped them with the edge of my blouse. "I do not have any money, Ryan," I said in a clear, firm voice. "I am a dead weight, remember? Dead weights do not have money, they do not cook roasts, and they do not pay the cable bill so you can watch football." Ryan let out a laugh, a nervous one. "Your mom comes up with the craziest things, Claire. She is really losing her marbles, huh?" But Claire did not laugh. She walked over to me, red with anger and embarrassment. "Mom, enough!" she hissed through her teeth. "Give him the money. I know you have the cash from the commercial rent. Give it to me right now. Do not make me look for it." I stood up. My knees cracked, but I stood tall. I walked over to the dining table where I had left my ledger closed. I picked it up with both hands, feeling the weight of the truth on my fingers, and returned to the center of the living room. "Do you want clear accounts, Claire?" I asked, raising my voice a little. "You too, Ryan. Do you want to know where the money is?" "Just give us the money for the pizza and shut up," Claire yelled, completely losing her temper. I opened the book. The sound of the pages turning was the only thing heard in the living room. I found the page marked with a red bookmark. I adjusted my glasses again and looked Ryan right in the eyes. He stopped smiling. "Ryan," I read out loud. "Sunday the 12th, short ribs, 6 pounds, premium cut. Imported beers, 2 cases. Total $180. Sunday the 19th, seafood paella and white wine. Total $220. Friday the 24th, a gas loan that was never paid back. $50. Ryan turned as red as a tomato. He jumped up from the couch. "What is this? Are you charging me for food, lady? That is in very poor taste. I am a guest." "A guest brings flowers, or dessert, or at least says thank you," I replied without getting worked up, running my finger down the column of numbers. "A parasite arrives, demands things, eats, and complains. In the last 6 months, Ryan, your guest visits have cost me almost $1,500. And that is not even counting the electricity you waste watching your games on my TV." Claire tried to snatch the book from me, but I was faster and slammed it shut, pulling away. "Mom, you are crazy. That is what family does. Family supports each other." "Family supports each other, yes," I said, staring at her. "But you said I was a dead weight, a burden. So I started thinking, if I am the burden, who is pulling the wagon? And it turns out, my daughter, that the wagon, the horse, and the road are all mine." I turned to the table and picked up an envelope I had prepared that afternoon. I pulled out the papers, the bills for electricity, water, gas, internet, property taxes. I tossed them onto the coffee table, right in front of Ryan. They scattered like dry leaves in autumn. "All of this," I pointed to the papers, "is in my name, paid for with my pension and my savings. You two, young, strong, and modern, are living off the charity of an old woman you despise." Ryan looked at the papers and then at Claire. His expression changed. There was no more mockery. There was calculation. "Hey, Claire, you told me the house was practically yours, that you handled everything." "And I do," she shrieked desperately. "She does not understand anything anymore. She is senile. Mom, stop humiliating me." "I am not humiliating you, Claire. I am presenting you with reality. Reality costs money. And today the reality is that there is no dinner, there is no television, and there is no borrowed money." Ryan ran his hand through his hair, uncomfortable. The atmosphere in the living room had changed drastically. It was no longer an awkward family visit. It was a summary trial, and I held the gavel. "Well then." Ryan grabbed his bottle of wine from the table. I think I better get going. This is way too intense for me. Claire, call me later when your mom gets over her temper tantrum. No. Claire grabbed his arm. Do not go. Do not leave me alone with her. Let us go out for dinner. I will pay. With what? I asked softly. Your card is declined, and I am not giving you any cash. Ryan broke free from Claire's grip with an ease that must have hurt her more than any physical blow. Yeah, we better talk later. I have things to do. He looked at me with a mix of fear and respect I had never seen in him before. Good night. He practically ran out. We heard his car engine start and speed away. Claire stood in the open doorway, staring out at the empty street, her back trembling. I sat back down in my armchair and picked up my knitting. Knit one, purl one. Claire closed the door with a soft thud and turned around slowly. Her eyes were full of tears, but they were not tears of sadness. They were pure rage. Are you happy? She spat the words at me. Are you happy? You scared him away. You kicked him out. You ruined my night. You are ruining my life. I am saving your life, you fool, I said without looking at her, counting my stitches. That man only came around for the free food and the comfort. If he left because there was no roast, imagine what he would do if you got sick or lost your job. Oh wait, you do not have a steady job and he did not even offer to pay for a pizza. You do not know anything, she yelled, walking toward me with clenched fists. Do you think just because you have a few bucks saved up you can control me? I am your daughter. You have an obligation to help me. I set my knitting aside for good. I stood up and faced her. Even though she was taller and younger, in that moment I felt massive. My shadow was cast against the wall, towering over her. My obligation ended when you turned 18, I said with a voice that came from deep within the earth. Everything I did after that was out of love, out of generosity. But you confuse love with servitude. You confuse generosity with entitlement. You called me dead weight in my own kitchen, Claire. You yelled at me that I am good for nothing. I took a step toward her, and she instinctively backed away. Well then, now you are going to see what a real burden is. Starting tomorrow, the rules change. This is no longer an all-inclusive resort. If you want to live here, you are going to pay rent. You are going to pay your share of the electricity, the water, and the gas. And food, you buy your own food, you cook it, and you wash your own dishes. She looked at me with her mouth wide open, unable to process what she was hearing. Rent? She stammered. To your own daughter? To my tenant, I corrected her, because a daughter does not treat her mother like an old rag. A daughter respects. You lost that title yesterday. You cannot do that, she shrieked, returning to her spoiled little girl tone. I have no money. I have nowhere to go. You have your health. You have 2 hands. You have an education that I paid for by washing other people's clothes. Use them. I walked over to the table and picked up my ledger. And I suggest you start soon because in this book there is a debt of $80,000 that, although I am not going to collect in cash, I am going to collect in respect. Every single cent. Claire collapsed onto the couch where her boyfriend had been sitting minutes before. She covered her face with her hands and began to sob. But this time, her crying did not move a single hair on my head. My heart was armored with the certainty that I was doing the right thing. I had raised a parasite, and it was my duty, even if it was late, to teach her how to survive without a host. I went to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and returned to the living room. She was still crying. You have 2 options, Claire, I told her, setting the glass on the table. Either you accept the new rules and we start from scratch, like 2 adults sharing a house, or you pack your bags. You have until noon tomorrow to decide. I headed for the stairs. I was exhausted. The adrenaline was starting to wear off and I felt the fatigue in my bones, but I also felt a lightness I had not experienced in years. I had taken back my house. I had taken back my voice. Mom, I heard her say between sobs when I was already halfway up the stairs. What am I going to eat for dinner? I stopped. I turned around slowly and looked down at her. The light from the lamp illuminated my tired but victorious face. "I do not know, Claire. Welcome to adult life. They say hunger sharpens the mind." I climbed the rest of the stairs without looking back, listening to the stunned silence I left behind, a silence that no longer belonged to me. Because that night, for the first time in a long time, she was the one carrying the burden. 3 months have passed since the night of clear accounts, as I like to call it in my head. 3 months since my daughter Claire discovered that the dead weight was actually the engine keeping the ship afloat. The house smells different now. It no longer smells of tension or that sweet, cheap perfume Claire used to mask her lack of direction. Now it smells of freshly brewed coffee in the mornings, coffee that we each make for ourselves, and of the floor wax I apply on Thursdays, not out of obligation, but because I like seeing my house shine. I adjust my earrings in front of the entryway mirror. They are simple, antique gold ones that my mother gave me when I turned 15. Today is meeting day with the ladies from the parish volunteer group. I did not use to go before. I used to stay home waiting for the girl to need something, or making sure the rice did not burn, or simply just being there, available, like another piece of furniture. But the old Margaret retired. I hear the key in the lock. The door opens and Claire walks in. She looks different. Her hair, which always used to be salon-styled, is now pulled back in a practical ponytail. She no longer wears those acrylic nails that stopped her from picking up a coin off the floor. Her hands are clean, short, and for the first time in her life, they look worked. "Hi, Mom," she says, leaving her purse on the chair, not thrown on the floor like before. Her voice sounds tired but firm. "Good afternoon, honey," I answer, giving myself a final touch of lipstick. "You are home early from work." "Yeah, they changed the schedule at the store. I had to open today, so I got off at 3. She walks over to the dining table and pulls a white envelope from her purse. She sets it on the wood with a soft sound. "Here's the money from my paycheck, my share for the electricity and the gas, and $200 for rent." I look at the envelope. It is not a fortune. It is money earned with sweat, dealing with grumpy customers at a mall clothing store, folding t-shirts and putting up with demanding managers. It is real money. "All right," I say, taking the envelope and putting it in my purse without counting it in front of her. Trust is earned, and she is earning it dollar by dollar. "Are there any pending bills?" "No, I already paid for the internet myself," she answers, and there is a glimmer of pride in her eyes that I had never seen when she was spending my money. "By the way, I signed up for the basic plan. I do not need anything more." I smile on the inside. The Claire, who demanded premium channels, now values every megabyte because it comes out of her pocket. "That sounds sensible to me," I comment, grabbing my shawl. "Well, I am heading out. I will be back at 7. She looks at me with surprise, even though she should be used to my new routine by now. "You are going out?" I bought some chicken. I thought you could teach me how to make that chicken and potato stew you make so well." I stop with my hand on the doorknob. There was a time when I would have canceled my plans. I would have put on my apron and run to the kitchen, thrilled that my daughter needed me. But that time had passed. "The recipe is in the blue notebook in the 3rd drawer," I tell her softly. "Read the steps carefully. The secret is not letting the onions burn." "But Mom, it never comes out the same." "Nobody is born knowing how, Claire. I burned a lot of pots before your father was licking his fingers with my cooking. Give it a try. If it burns, we will eat scrambled eggs. That is how you learn." I step out into the street and the afternoon sun warms my face. I walk toward the bus stop with my head held high. I do not feel guilty. On the contrary, I feel like I am finally acting as a real mother. Not a maid, not a bank, but a teacher. And today's lesson is self-sufficiency. The bus ride allows me to reflect. I see other women my age carrying heavy grocery bags with hunched backs and worried looks. I see myself a few months ago and I want to scream at them. "Drop that burden, it is not yours." Ryan never came back. He disappeared like smoke as soon as the tap of easy money was shut off. At first, Claire cried. She cried a lot. She screamed at me that I was cruel, that I had chased away the love of her life. I let her scream. I knew it was not love, it was convenience. 2 weeks later, when she saw that Ryan was already posting pictures with another younger woman with a new car, she understood. It was a hard lesson, the kind that breaks you a little so you can put yourself back together better. That afternoon, when Claire came to my room with swollen eyes and apologized, not about Ryan, but for having called me dead weight, I knew we had crossed the bridge. "I am not a burden, Claire," I told her that day, wiping away a tear. "I am your foundation, and foundations can withstand anything except being despised." I arrive at the parish hall. My friends, Teresa and Carol, are already there, sorting the clothes we are going to donate to the shelter. "Margaret," Teresa exclaims, "it is a miracle you are here on time. You always used to have to leave an afternoon snack ready for your little girl." "The little girl is 40 years old, Teresa." I laugh, adjusting a box. "And she already knows how to turn on the stove without burning the house down." We spend the afternoon working, laughing, and drinking coffee. I feel useful. I feel alive. Here, my experience running the store helps in sorting the donations and keeping the group's accounting records. Nobody tells me I am slow. On the contrary, they ask me for advice. "Margaret, how did you make your laundry detergent stretch so far?" "Margaret, do you know how to darn this kind of fabric?" My uselessness was a myth invented by the laziness of others. Here, I am a general. When I return home, already dark out, I see a light on in the kitchen. I walk in carefully. It smells like something burnt, but only a little bit. Claire is sitting at the table in front of 2 plates of chicken and potatoes. She looks disheveled, with a sauce stain on her t-shirt, but she smiles when she sees me. "I overcooked the potatoes a little bit," she admits, pointing at the plate. "But the chicken is fully cooked. I checked it 3 times. I sit down across from her. I take a bite. The potatoes are a little hard and the sauce needs salt, but it tastes like pure glory. It tastes like effort. It is good. I lie kindly, although it is not entirely a lie. You needed a little more water so the potatoes would cook through, but for your first time, it passes the test." Claire sighs in relief and starts eating with a ravenous appetite. "You know, Mom, a lady came into the store today. She treated the cleaning lady horribly. She yelled at her because she was mopping near her and got a little water on her shoe." I look at her, waiting to see where this is going. "It made me so mad," she continues, playing with her fork. "I told the lady to show some respect, that the girl was just doing her job. The lady complained to my manager, but I did not care. It reminded me of you, of when you used to tell me about how you carried boxes at the market." Her voice cracks. She puts her fork down and looks me in the eyes. Those eyes that months ago looked at me with contempt, now look at me with a mix of shame and admiration. "I thought you were a burden, because you were always at home, Mom, because you walked slowly, because you wore those old glasses. I did not see everything you did to keep me afloat. Forgive me. Truly, forgive me. I was so stupid." I feel a lump in my throat, but I do not cry. We matriarchs cry in private or out of happiness, and this is bigger than happiness. It is justice. I reach my hand across the table and cover hers. Her skin is softer than mine, but you can already start to feel the strength underneath. "It is in the past, honey. The important thing is not how you fell, but that you have gotten back up. And look," I point to the plate, "you even cooked." She lets out a short, nervous laugh. "Yeah, well, do not get used to it. On the weekend you are cooking because this is very stressful, but I will pay for the ingredients. It is a deal." We finish dinner in a comfortable silence. Then she gets up and clears the plates. "Leave them, Mom. I will wash." "You go rest. You were out all afternoon." I do not argue. I stand up and walk over to my green armchair, my reclaimed throne. I pick up my knitting. It is no longer a scarf without an owner. I am knitting a blanket for the winter, a big, colorful patchwork quilt, strong and warm. From the living room, I hear the sound of the water and the clinking of the plates. It is the most beautiful sound in the world. It is the sound of my daughter's independence and my own freedom. I look around my living room. There are no more pictures of Ryan. In their place, Claire put an old black and white photo of me when I was younger, standing behind the counter at Hope Grocery, smiling with a pencil tucked behind my ear. She told me she found it in a box and framed it because she wanted to remember where we come from. Where do we come from? We come from hard work, effort, and dignity. I realize that old age is not a sentence, nor a dark room where you wait for the end. Old age is a privilege. It is the time when one can say no without guilt, and yes only to what truly matters. Claire walks out of the kitchen, drying her hands. Everything is clean now. I'm going to sleep, Mom. I have to go in early again tomorrow. Oh, by the way, she stops at the foot of the stairs. This weekend I want to paint the front of the house. It is really peeling. I bought the paint with my employee discount. Will you help me pick the color for the window frames? Of course I will. White always looks good. It brightens things up. Good night, Mom. Get some rest. Good night, honey. I watch her go up. Her footsteps no longer sound heavy, nor do they drag with laziness. She walks up with energy. I am left alone in the living room with the lamp on. I look at my hands, those veiny, spotted hands that trembled when I held that medicine bottle on that terrible day. They do not tremble anymore. They are steady. They hold the needles with precision. To think it all started because I could not read a label. God writes straight with crooked lines, as they say. My eyesight is still failing, yes. Tomorrow I will go to the eye doctor, and this time I will pay for my new glasses with my own money without asking anyone for favors, even though Claire offered to come with me. But even if my eyes see things blurry, my vision of life has never been clearer. I am not a dead weight. I am the deep root of this tree. And as long as the root is strong, the branches can grow wherever they want, even if they grow a little crooked at first. They can always be straightened out. I turn off the lamp. The house goes silent, but it is not an empty silence. It is a silence filled with peace, with settled accounts, and a future that at last belongs to both of us. I go to bed knowing that tomorrow, when the sun comes up, I will not have to serve anyone breakfast. But maybe, just maybe, I will share a cup of coffee with the woman my daughter is becoming. And that coffee, I am sure, will taste better than ever.